Hi, I'm Steve Brown. For the next few minutes, I want you to use your imagination. I want you to enter an imaginary world where you're confined into a space 10 by 13, where your freedom is taken away for days, months, weeks, perhaps even years, where you're told what to do every hour of the day, where you have very limited choices, where you can sit in jail, and that's what we're talking about, prison or jail, and you can continue the life that led you there, put in your time, and when you leave, make no changes. That's choice number one. Choice number two, however, is that you can decide to break out of the mold, that you can do something different with your life, that you can move on and use this as a positive learning experience. And that's what I really want to talk to you about today. There are many people who do exactly that, but it's not an easy road. They have to rely on other people. Reading and education are probably the two most vital tools in order to accomplish that. And that's where we come in. For the next few minutes, I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about how you can help someone else. I want you to think about the folks in prison as brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, neighbors, because eventually most of them will get out, and that's what they will become. At the very least, they'll become neighbors. Do you want someone as your neighbor who has simply put in the time and continued the life of crime? Or do you want someone who's bettered themselves? They can do it with your help. And now I want you to leave that imaginary world for a moment, because we don't have to use our imagination. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, a man named Charlie Wall, who knows the reality of prison. Charlie, first of all, welcome. Thanks for doing this, because I know it's probably not the easiest thing in the world for you to talk about, but take me back to where you were about 5.5 years ago with your life.
I was a totally different person. Today, looking back, and the people I once knew, they don't believe it's me, and it scares them. I was a drug addict. I was ignorant to the point I had an elementary education at best. I understood life very littly. And basically, I was such an emotional wreck that I couldn't handle life, people, or situations, so I turned to drugs.
So let's go back. You were sentenced. Your sentence was how long?
My sentence was 5 to life.
Five to life.
Going in, I knew I was going to do at least 5 years.
And you did. And we should tell people you've been out now for 6 months. But I want to talk about the transition process. You talked about ignorance and not knowing and so turning to drugs. When did it change? Was there a moment when you said, okay, I'm going to actively change, or was it a gradual process? Was there the light bulb go on, or did it take some time for you to figure out that things needed to be different?
It happened like a ton of bricks. All of a sudden, for the next 5 years, people control your life. And if you don't do something about that, then for the next rest of your life, that's going to happen again. It's just that bottom. I fell so far down that it was time to climb because I couldn't dig any deeper.
You talked about people controlling your life, and I mentioned that in the introduction, that people would control your every moment. But there are certain things that no matter what physically they do to you in terms of control, there are certain things that you have the freedom to do, and one of them is your intellect and one of them is your mind. So they had limited control over you, they have physical control, but they didn't have intellectual control over you. You had to make that decision, and you did, correct?
Right, and it's not necessarily that you're just given that opportunity. It's to the point that you have to earn the right to read books. Entering the prison, you're stuck in a cage 23 hours a day, sometimes 24, with no opportunity to get books, no opportunity to borrow books. So your behavior is what expands your opportunities.
It's interesting. I know there are opportunities to do certain things in prison. You can work on your physical self. There are opportunities to do that, but your mental self is more difficult. What about the availability, just in terms of sheer numbers of books within a prison setting? How readily available are they if you were to be able to earn the privilege? Today's world, what kind of book universe is out there in the prison?
It varies. Everything's segregated. So there's a separate library for each living facility. Some are adequate, and some are not. The turnover rate's definitely slow because it all comes from donations. Most of the textbooks, self-help books, nonfiction, it's completely out of date. We're talking biology books from the 70s.
Let's go back to you. Let's talk about the personal impact on your life. If I have to ask you, and it's a tough question, but in a nutshell, what did you learn from books? As a general rule, what did you learn from books?
I'm still learning what I learned from books. I started out basically, since it is hard to obtain the books you want, you have the choice to read books that are there. So because of books, I now have a decent vocabulary, a general knowledge of multiple things. I have a spiritual life because of books. I have the ability to communicate, have this conversation. Never before in my life could I have done this. The way that I interact with people when I go in my personal and business life, totally different. The way people respond to me, the things I accomplish, the fact that I have confidence today, that is not aggression. It's all due to books.
Finally, where would you be today without the exposure to books?
I believe without my self-learning through the books I was given and the few opportunities I had to actually pursue an education, I'd be back to that same ignorant person that was either in a cage or headed towards a cage.
And I lied. I do have one final question. I assume you can't do it yourself as an inmate. That the limitations that are placed on you as an inmate, without the help of people in the outside world, you wouldn't be able to gain the access even that you had.
Absolutely not. You can order books, but if you're extremely lucky, you have a 40-cent job. An hour, you might work 10 hours a week, and the only people you can order books from is Barnes and Nobles, and it comes with a $10 service fee, I think. So you're looking at $30, $40 books when you don't earn that a month.
You're an inspiration to a lot of people, Charlie, and thanks again for your courage, because I know this is not an easy thing for you.
Well, thank you.
So we can talk all we want about theory, but you see the application in practice with Charlie. Now, not everybody is going to succeed to Charlie's level, we know that. But maybe everybody deserves the opportunity to, which leads me to the project that we're talking about today, the books. You know, I was involved with Salt Lake Community College many years ago, and I have a good friend who's a professor of communications there, and his class is involved in a project to donate between 5,000 and 10,000 books to the prison library at the Utah State Prison. This is just a small example of the books that have already been collected. But as I mentioned earlier, the inmates can't do it. Even if they wanted access to the books, there's just not the possibility given today's reality. And that's where you come in. So Professor Norm Zern and his class are going to tell you how you can be involved in a project that I hope we all embrace and we can all see the reality of. You can leave these people in prison and say, let's just warehouse them, and then when they're back on the streets again, we'll deal with the problems. Or you can do what we all should do, and that is recognize that a rising tide lifts all boats. Let's help raise the water level with the book project.
Thank you so much. Would ask you to, after you've seen this video, please pass it on. Pass it on to 10 people. Tell them about it. Obviously, we'd like to do this for Utah, but if you're in California, if you're in Hawaii, do it there. But let's be proactive in our life. Thank you so much.
Bring them in. Doesn't have to be a great stack, just come on through and put them through there. Good. Good job, everybody. And cut. Thanks, well, you guys do a great job.